Hello and welcome to the Property Podcast. It's episode 220. I'm Rob B with Rob D, and this week we get political.
Yes, welcome to the Property Podcast. We are only a week away from the general election. I bet you can't sleep with excitement. You're counting down the days. Well, if you can't sleep for the excitement, I recommend reading the party's manifestos. That's an excellent way of dropping off. We've done it so you don't have to. We've been combing through the housing policies, seeing what there is that investors need to know about. Of course, it won't be the only thing that determines how you vote, but maybe it'll be a part of it. So we are going to enlighten you, hopefully, today. Before we get into national matters though, Rob, let's start with a couple more local items.
Yes, just as important as voting is attending a Property Hub meetup. They're tonight. So, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, which is Thursday, the first Thursday of the month, then get yourself along to the meetups tonight. How do you do it, I hear you ask? Well, you go to the propertyhub.net/meetup, find your nearest meetup, and there's nearly 40 of them now, if not more, and get yourself a free ticket. It's that simple. And then come along, mingle, very informal, full of friendly property investors who are more than happy to talk about property. So make sure you get along tonight.
And while we're talking about things that are free and useful, we've got another free course for you.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, but we committed earlier this year that we would be having a number of new courses coming out, and perhaps unlike politicians, we are keeping our word. The first of those is out now. The course is called How to Invest When You Have No Time. It's such a common concern for the people in our community. We get asked it all the time. You see threads about it all the time. People who want to invest, but they've got a really full-on job that they need to earn the money to invest. So how do they actually invest when all their time is taken up? Well, in this course, we give you a lot of practical tips to help you overcome that challenge. As I said, it's completely free. All you need to do is get over to thepropertyhub.net, click on the thing that says free courses, and it will be there for you, along with all our previous ones as well. It's a good one, and there's lots more where that came from.
Yeah, probably worth bookmarking the page because we're giving this a lot of our focus at the moment. So you're probably going to see about one a month for the rest of the year. We've been working hard in the background to bring you even more free content. So get along to Property Hub, check the new course out. And that's had a bit of a refresh as well, the format. So have a look, let us know what you think. And as Rob said, you've got all the other ones we've done there already for you to watch when you're good to go. So Rob, are you ready? Manifesto time.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're going to be just looking at Tories, Labour and the Lib Dems. Sorry to all the other parties. We would have liked to do more, but Blumenek, there is a lot just in these three. So we're going to stick to those. They all have quite a bit to say about housing. Let's start, Rob, with the Conservatives. And they've got some policies specifically on homelessness that we'll kick off with.
And I'm going to do my best through the next half hour not to get political, but it's going to be a tough one with this beginning. The Tories say they're going to continue to combat homelessness and the rough sleeping through full implementation of the Homeless Reduction Act, some of their policies that made people homeless in the first place. But let's move on. That wasn't a very good start, was it, Rob? Aim to have rough sleeping over the course of the Parliament to eliminate it altogether by 2027. Well, good. I think that in this day and age, that anyone homeless in such a wealthy and prosperous country is a disgrace. So let's hope that is a common theme throughout everyone's manifestos, which I think it is.
Okay, onwards to housing in general. They say we will fix the dysfunctional housing market so that housing is more affordable and people have the security they need to plan for the future. The key to this is to build enough homes to meet demand. This will slow the rise in housing costs, blah, 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 and will ensure that more private capital is invested in more productive investment. Don't really understand the second part because it sounds like they're going to be taking private capital and putting it into housing. Nevertheless, this is a theme that I'm sure all parties will say about fixing the housing market and making more affordable homes. And another thing that we're going to see in all of them is a lofty target about how many homes they're going to build. In the Conservatives' case, they're going to be delivering 1 million homes by the end of 2020 and 500,000 more by the end of 2022. Will they do this? Well, listen on and see if you're convinced about how they're going to do it. It's not been going brilliantly so far, so I expect there'll be something pretty brilliant coming up that will tell us how they're going to do it.
Okay, let's see. They will deliver reforms, this is still with the Tories, on a proposed housing white paper to free up more land for new homes in the right places, speed up the build-out of encouraging modern methods of construction, which is interesting, and giving councils the power to intervene where developers do not act on their planning permission. Don't know how they're going to implement it, but all well intended. They go on to concede that they will never achieve the number of new homes that they want to hit and require without the active participation of the social and municipal housing providers. So they've got to work with them as well. And then they go on to say, finally, that with greater flexibility to housing associations to increase their working stock, build on their considerable track record in recent years, blah, 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 goes on for a bit longer, won't read it all out. So actually, Rob, for the Conservatives, normally have a lot to say about property, normally. They haven't got a lot in there. Want to end homelessness, which is good, and build more homes, which is good, but as we've talked about in the past, very difficult to deliver on. But then again, in the last election, they said a few things and then did a lot more to investors and landlords after they got into power. So with all these parties, lots written down now, but they may change their mind to do different things after they get in.
Yeah, the question's always, well, what's not in there? And last time what wasn't in there was the stamp duty changes, the mortgage interest relief. So all the things that have actually affected us as landlords haven't been in there. So you've got to sort of take all of this with a pinch of salt. But if you're reading between the lines, there's no anti-landlord rhetoric. I mean, maybe that's because they expect a lot of their vote base to be landlords, so they're not going to go and stick it in there. But nevertheless, it's hard to disagree with the aims of what they're doing. How are they going to do it? Don't know. The bit about social housing is interesting. I think that's not a bad idea. If government has to invest in anything, then housing seems like a good thing to be investing in. They talk about right to buy. Right to buy is fair enough as long as they are replaced, which they weren't last time, which is the reason why we've got so much private provision of what was traditionally social housing now. So there's interesting stuff in there. Let's see how it compares to the other parties.
Well, with Labour, like the rest of the manifesto, they've put pretty much every policy in. So this took a bit of editing, but here we go. So first of all, they're going to scrap the bedroom tax, which has been far from popular, and reinstate the housing benefit for under 21s. I think that will be popular with many people. Secure homes for all. So they want to build over 1 million new homes by the end of next Parliament, and they want to build at least 100,000 council or housing association homes a year for affordable rent or sale. So as the target goes, if it's a 5-year parliament, 1 million homes, it's 200 a year. Actually, if all the parties, that's the smallest target. You could say that lacks ambition, or you could say it's realism. Even 200,000 is above what we're doing right now. So easy to write all these policies down, sometimes harder to deliver. What else have we got, Rob?
Okay, so here's your reading between the lines anti-landlord bit, perhaps. Labour will establish a new department for housing to focus on tackling the crisis and to ensure housing is about homes for the many, not investment opportunities for the few. So, of course, investment opportunities should not come at the cost of anyone who wants to own their home. Can't argue with that, but after what's happened recently, you can see landlords getting a little bit nervous about wording like that. A few other bits as well. They say they will protect the green belt. They'll start work on a new generation of new towns. Have we heard that before? I'm sure we've talked about that in the past with a different party. And they will also insulate more homes to reduce energy bills and keep the land registry in public hands and make land ownership more transparent. It seems like a good idea to me.
Okay, so now on to home ownership. Labour will back first-time buyers to buy that special first home. That's their word, not mine, but fair enough. The number of affordable homes to buy has plummeted, 2/3 under the Tories, they say. So they'll build thousands more for low-cost homes reserved for first-time buyers. They'll guarantee Help to Buy funding until 2027 to give long-term certainty to first-time buyers and the house building industry. And they will give local people first dibs on new homes built in their area to give them confidence that their new homes will be available to them and their families. And finally, in this section, Labour will give leaseholders security from rip-off ground rents at the end of routine use of leasehold houses in new developments. So, again, lots of, you could see positive moves. How they'll be able to implement them all, we'll have to see if they get in power. On the final point they make about ground rents, I think that seems to be changing already, and the industry seems to be self-regulating itself there, and there's already been some changes, which we can talk about in the future. But generally, nothing too shocking there. Help to Buy to continue. Yes, that's nice for the first-time buyers, but the home builders will be actually the ones most happy with that, because it's basically giving them easy sales until 2027.
Yes, indeed. All right. Now, on to the business end of this as far as landlords are concerned, the section on private renters. They say, we will end insecurity for private renters by introducing controls on rent rises, more secure tenancies, landlord licensing, and new consumer rights for renters. That's the kind of thing that will make a lot of landlords quite nervous. But I don't know. The thing I don't quite get about this whole thing is if by controls on rent rises, it just means the percentage by which you can increase it within a given tenancy. Well, I don't know many landlords who jack up rents unreasonably on existing tenants anyway. They'd rather keep the good tenants. So I'm not sure how much of a big deal that is, but nevertheless, that will make some landlords nervous. It also says Labour will make new 3-year tenancies the norm with an inflation cap on rent rises, which I think is the same thing as the previous one. And again, with 3-year tenancies, I kind of get it. They can do that in the build to rent sector. How they do it in the private sector when mortgage lenders won't agree to that, I'm not too sure. It's another of those things where, again, I don't quite get it, because as a landlord, if you've got a tenant and that tenant is paying their rent, then, well, why would you ever want to kick them out? Are there that many landlords who evict just to try to get a little bit extra rent? Well, there must be, because politicians flag this up as a problem. I'm aware that I'm only seeing a certain sector of the market. But nevertheless, these seem to be the big ideas in there: controls on rent rises and 3-year tenancies.
They'll also make sure the policy of banning letting agency fees for tenants is implemented. And they will empower tenants to call time on bad landlords by giving renters new consumer rights. Renters are spending $6 billion a year on homes that the government classes as non-decent. Don't know where they got that number from. Around a quarter of this is paid by housing benefit. The Labour government would introduce minimum standards to ensure properties are fit for human habitation, empower tenants to take action if their rented homes are substandard. I think if that is done sensibly, that's a good thing, because as good property investors and landlords, well, the people who listen to this podcast, I'm sure, we want to make sure people have nice homes to live in. It's just to what level they go to. You know, there's controls and then there's controls. You know, it becomes silly at some point. So it's got to be a balance. What's really interesting, and that's pretty much the Labour policies done as far as housing goes. What's really interesting about Labour's policies is it seems a little anti-landlord, possibly, but then they need the landlords to house all these people. So they've got to find a balance. There's a lot of populist measures in their manifesto to keep. It seems they want to please a lot of people. How much of it will be implemented? Well, we'd have to see if they get in power.
Okay, so that's Labour. Let's move on to the Lib Dems and see what they have to say. Well, Lib Dems are off to a strong start. They win the target game. They have an ambitious target of increasing the rate of house building to 300,000 a year, almost double the current level. So over a 5-year parliament, that would be 1.5 million. So they win in terms of target setting. Better see how they're going to do it. Well, they're going to create at least 10 new garden cities in England.
They better tell the Tories to build theirs first, Rob. They're good at talking about building garden cities.
Yeah, I was getting all prepped to move to one of the ones that Osborne was talking about, but haven't seen any of those yet. But apparently they're going to do 10 more in 5 years. Fair enough. They're also going to set up a new government-backed housing and infrastructure development bank to provide long-term capital for major new settlements and attract finance for major house building projects. So that's all tied into the same thing. They're also going to set up a new government-backed British Housing and Infrastructure Development Bank to provide long-term capital for that type of project. So that seems to be the big idea, Rob. 10 new garden cities to build all these homes.
Which is good. The bank is a nice idea, but they go on to say it's for only major house builders who are already subsidised with the Help to Buy, and they get really good lending rates already. It's the medium and smaller sized developers who struggle to get finance. That could really boost the housing stock. Well, that's a shame, but never mind. They're going to end right to buy pilots that sell off housing association homes. They're going to lift the borrowing cap on local authorities to increase the borrowing capacity of housing associations so they can actually build more homes. And then to help the smaller developers, they're going to scrap exemptions on smaller housing development schemes from their obligation to provide affordable homes and strengthen the hand of local government to prevent large developer reneging on their commitments, which at the moment is really easy to get out of.
And they're also going to pass some powers to local authorities. So at a local level, they're going to allow councils to do a few things. They're going to allow councils to levy up to 200% council tax on second homes and buy-to-leave empty investments from overseas. They'll be able to enforce house building on unwanted public sector land. They'll be able to penalise excessive land banking when builders with planning permission have failed to build after 3 years. And they'll be able to end the right to buy if they choose. So they're not saying that they are going to do those things, but they're saying that they will enable local authorities to do those things if they wish, so they can have more control over what they do. Okay, so far, so aspirational. Not a lot of detail about how it's going to be done, but it all sounds great. But now, Rob, onto the bit where if there are any nasties, they might be lurking, the buying and renting section.
Okay, so let's have a look. So they're going to introduce, and we've talked about this in the past, a rent-to-own model where rent payments give tenants an increasing stake in a property, owning it outright after 30 years. Now, for those people who may sound alarmed, I don't think that's going to be enforced on landlords, although they've not given us the detail, but I can't see that happening. I think it might be a scheme where you work together. But then having a tenant for 30 years at an inflated possible rent might appeal to some. But we'll have to see the detail. They're going to, like the other parties, ban letting fees for tenants and capping upfront deposits and increasing the minimum standards in rented homes, which we've talked about already. They're going to help young people into the rental market by establishing a help to rent scheme to provide government-backed tenancy deposit loans for young people under the age of 30. I think that's a really, really good idea. They're going to give buyers a fair chance to stop developers advertising homes abroad before they've been advertised in the UK. We talked about that recently in the Secret Property Boom episode. Go back and listen to that if you want to find out more. And they go on, Rob.
They do. Okay, so this is interesting. They will give tenants first refusal to buy the home they are renting from a landlord who decides to sell during the tenancy at the market rate according to an independent valuation. Don't know about that one. I think we might file that one under see what they're trying to do there, but can't see how it would actually work. They'll also, and this is similar to the Labour policy, promote longer tenancies of 3 years or more with an inflation-linked annual rent increase built in to give tenants security and limit rent hikes. They also say that they will improve protections against rogue landlords through mandatory licensing and allow access for tenants to the database of rogue landlords and property agents. So there's a few things in there that landlords could be a little bit nervous about. First refusal to buy is interesting. Longer tenancies, again, we talked about that with Labour. I can't see any landlords objecting to that if, firstly, their mortgage allowed them to do it, and secondly, if they could easily evict during the fixed term if tenants didn't pay their rent. And then also mandatory licensing. So licensing is already mandatory in Scotland and Wales. Sounds like the Lib Dems want to bring it to England as well. And we'll finish on a positive because they also say that they will end the scandal of rough sleeping by increasing support for homelessness prevention and increasing funding for age-appropriate emergency accommodation, which takes us back to where we started.
So in summary, Conservatives haven't really said anything, but we'll do it all after they get into power, or they hope to get in power. Labour have said everything, hoping to get into power. And the Lib Dems seem very, very optimistic. Okay, a huge thank you to Zoe at RMP, who went through all the manifestos to drag all this out, and she didn't quit. So thank you, Zoe, for doing that for us. We've also got another big thank you in the form of an iTunes review. And then after that, we've got a really, really good resource of the week, and we'll let you know what's coming up next week. But first, Rob, let's acknowledge this wonderful listener who's left us a review. Daniel says, these guys know their stuff. I'm someone who listens to lots and lots of property podcasts a week, and I must say their light-hearted, incredible, informative style really hits the mark. Well done, lads. Really well worth listening to. Well, thank you, Daniel. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, we absolutely do. Thank you very much, Daniel. We will repay you with what I think is going to be a great episode next week, and we'll also repay you right now with a resource of the week. And Rob, this is one that you've brought in called Noisely.
Yeah, I've not really used it until literally minutes before we went live on the podcast. But it's been doing rounds in the office and it seems pretty popular. What is it? It's another app to help you concentrate with background noise. We've had a few variants of this in the past, but I really, really like this one. It's more focused on sounds this time round. So you can get the wind blowing, you can get leaves rustling, you can get fires crackling, you can have coffee shop noise, you can have a fan. And I've got a friend who can't sleep without fan noise in the background. So a really, really interesting app. But you don't just pick one sound, you can actually mix them as well. So if you love nothing better than the rain in the forest, then you can mix those two sounds together, increase or decrease the volume as you see fit for each sound, and have your perfect background noise. So check it out. Go to the show notes this week, which are at thepropertyhub.net/election 2017.
Okay, so that is us done for this week. Hopefully we've struck an appropriate level of cynicism and not alienated anyone by being equally sceptical about every party that we talked about.
Yeah, we've not been very upbeat on any of them.
No, we've not, but I think cynicism in politics has been well rewarded. So I don't see any reason to change that. So we've been cynical and downbeat this week. We're going to keep that theme going next week by asking, are we on the verge of the next property crash? Are we? Well, you'll have to listen to find out.
But don't worry, if you want to cheer yourself up, remember, it's meet-up night tonight, so you can go and see lots of cheery people, if Rob and I have downtrodden you. And you've got a wonderful free course, so we'll make it up to you that way. Go to thepropertyhub.net, click on the free courses tab at the top of the homepage, and you can deep dive into loads of wonderful free courses, including our brand new one, How to Invest When You Have No Time. Make sure you check it out.
Yep, you go do that. We will see you on Tuesday for Ask Rob and Rob, then back here for the Property Podcast next Thursday. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Podcast. For show notes, all our past episodes, and to leave a review, go to thepropertyhub.net/podcast.